Are we on? Oh, blast. Yes, we're on. Yes, ho ho ho, season's greetings to one and all. I hope we're feeling festive. We're literally like 8 hours away from Christmas, so I thought I'd just come and say hi and say thank you so much, really, to everyone and anyone that has followed the socials and spread the good vibe. I like to think we've done a lot of good this year, so thank you for that. Hi everyone that's waving at me now. I thought it was a nice gesture to round up the year that we would well, first of all, read a chapter from my book. Or I'll read it to you, rather. But also for anyone that's out there right now that can donate to Crisis UK, it's a brilliant organisation that helps a lot of people that on that particular day have it harder than anyone. So anything you can give, thank you very much. If not, don't worry, I will wave at you and I will do my best to keep this entertaining. This is chapter 20 from Tom Felton, Beyond the Wand, in case you're all puzzled at this point. Chapter 20, A Kind Word from Dumbledore, or A Breath of Fresh Air. As everyone knows, we had two Dumbledores. So Richard Harris played the role in Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. Then when he sadly passed away, Sir Michael Gambon took on the part. At the time, I had no real idea of what a legend Richard Harris was, as I had very little to do with him. He only ever said 2 words to me. He took me to one side in between scenes, just outside the entrance to the Great Hall, peered at me in a very Dumbledore kind of way and said, "You're good." Nothing more than that. I don't think he meant to blow smoke, and I certainly didn't realise at the time that I was receiving praise from one of the greats. Did I think I was good? Well, I had a sense that I wasn't doing what everybody else was doing. Draco never wants to follow the crowd. If the rest of the students are standing here, he'll be standing there. When they're looking scruffy, he's looking perfect. When their top buttons are undone, his are firmly fastened. A trait that I hated at the time, because what self-respecting teenager wants their school uniform to be just so? So the character meant that it was easy for me to stand out. But was that the same thing as being good? Did I deserve those kind words from the original Dumbledore? Truth is, these matters are completely subjective. We all knew, Daniel, Emma and Rupert included, that we had a lot to learn. Sure, we knew not to look down the camera lens, and we knew how to find our marks, but it was the quality of the actors around us that made us look half decent. Like anyone in any field of endeavour, however, I had my moments that went well, and my moments that were best forgotten. Tom's cockiness sometimes helped Draco come to life on screen, and sometimes it didn't. In Chamber of Secrets, when Harry and Ron have taken Polyjuice Potion to transform themselves into Crabbe and Goyle, they follow Draco to the Slytherin common room. Harry has forgotten to take off his glasses, which led to a nice example of Chris Columbus's genius. When Goyle explains that he's wearing glasses because he's reading, I was asked to improvise. That would become one of my all-time favourite Draco lines. After take 3, Columbus appeared a little giddy, and he had a light bulb bing moment. He crept over to me excitedly, pulled me to one side and whispered a zinger into my ear. When he says he's wearing glasses because he's been reading, you say, "I didn't know you could read." We shared a smile. And that was the take that made the final film. I knew it because Chris burst out laughing after calling cut. The following scene, on the other hand, was not my finest moment on set. The 3 of us walked into the Slytherin common room, Draco leading the way, reading the Daily Prophet. Draco had a fairly chunky monologue. I didn't know my lines at all that day, and it cost them a good few hours of filming. I received a very substantial reprimand from David Heyman, and a phone call was even made to my mum, telling her that I had to know my lines or else. They ended up printing out bits of the script and sticking them into the newspaper so that I could read them out. Oh wait, read that again. They ended up printing out bits of the script and sticking them into the newspaper so that I could read them out. I doubt Richard Harris would have been massively impressed if he'd been in attendance that day. As I became more experienced, I began to understand that the notion of being good or bad in a scene is more nuanced than most people imagine. You can act your socks off, but if you're not connecting with the other actors in the scene, you're not doing a good job. Just like whacking a tennis ball as hard as you can doesn't make for a good game of tennis. There is no individual good or bad. It's about the ensemble performance, about context, about interpretation and opinion. If Rupert had played Draco and I played Ron, would the films have been different? Or better? Or worse? Yes, to all the above. Everyone's going to have their own view. So I remember that kind word from the original Dumbledore with warmth, but I also take it with a pinch of salt. Much of what I exuded in those early films was the cockiness of a kid who was comfortable in front of the camera. The compliment felt good, but I kept it in perspective. Okay, last bit. Thank you already. Amazing. We've raised over $400 for Crisis UK. This is going to help so many people tomorrow. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot to me. Okay. I had far more to do with our second Dumbledore than with our first. Richard Harris and Michael Gambon were very different characters in real life. Richard Harris reminded me of my grandpa in many ways. He had a warm, quiet wisdom about him, so well suited for the part he played. Michael Gambon was more of a showman. He might have played the old wizard, but he was very much a young boy at heart. He was self-deprecating, but was at that age and stature that he could say almost anything and get away with it. However outrageous. He loved a funny story or a quick joke, and I think that comes across in his interpretation of the character. He gave, in my opinion, an incredibly impressive performance, especially in Half-Blood Prince. Most of all, he was a lot of fun. One of the cardinal rules during filming was that you were never allowed to drive yourself to work. Physically drive yourself to work. I think there were insurance reasons for this, but much more importantly, the production people knew that half their cast would be late if they didn't have a driver sitting outside their front door at 6:30 every morning, ready to take them to work. Not what you want when you're trying to herd 30 people onto set at the same time. There's an exception to this rule, to every rule. However, in this case, Michael Gambon was it. He was a car guy. He had a brand new Audi R8 at one point, and later a Ferrari. He'd drive himself into work and park the motor right outside door 5, which was just about the most inconvenient place to put it. I'd be getting my hair dyed and I'd hear the revving of the engine outside. You best believe I was up out of that seat and running outside to check out Gambon's car with a head full of peroxide and silver foil. Oh, it's terrifying. He used to let us kids sit in it. And although I'm sure he was breaking all manner of regulations, who was really going to argue with him? I mean, he's Dumbledore, after all. Gambon liked to play dumb. He would often put on a pretense of confusion. What scene are we doing, darling? Where are we? Which character am I again? But I'm sure he was largely winding people up. There were occasions where he had less than a complete grasp of his lines. They once had to be held up for him on massive boards behind the camera, which made me feel a little better about my own occasional shakiness in that respect. It didn't mean that he wasn't taken very seriously. He was. and particularly by me, when the time came for us to shoot what was perhaps Draco's most significant and memorable scene, atop the lightning-struck tower in Half-Blood Prince. There were quite a few scenes in that film with Draco and just adults, and this was the biggest of them. Draco has Dumbledore at one point and is summoning the courage to carry out Voldemort's instruction to kill the headmaster. I wasn't exactly nervous about shooting that scene. I was excited. But I knew that this was the moment. I was used to coming into rehearsals with all the other kids, but I'd never been asked to rehearse by myself before. That changed for this scene, and I revelled in it. So much of my previous direction had been limited to loiter in the corner and look pissed off, or watch the tennis ball and imagine it's a dragon. It felt good finally to have a significant moment in the film, a piece that I could really put my mind to. So I rehearsed it well, and I knew my lines backwards. The big day arrived, and for some reason, despite my preparation, I kept stumbling over a particular line. And it's a strange thing, because once you go down that particular rabbit hole, it's difficult to scramble back up. A little voice just starts nagging in your head. You know these lines. You were awake all night reciting them. Why can't you get it right? And once that voice starts nagging, there's no turning back. It's a bit like corpsing on set. We did 3 or 4 takes, maybe more, and on each occasion, I messed it up. They called for a break, and Gambon magicked up a cigarette from out of his beard. He and I, often to be found outside the stage that housed the astronomy tower, having a breath of fresh air, as we referred to it. There would be painters and plasterers and chippies and sparks, and among them all would be me and Dumbledore having a crafty cigarette. Breath of fresh air, old chap, he suggested. We stepped outside, Gambon in his robes and the beard sock he wore, mostly to keep it straight, but partly out of fear that he'd set it alight with his cigarette. Me in my full black suit. We lit up, took a few puffs, and then I apologised. I'm sorry, Michael. I do know the lines. I don't know why I keep messing it up. I'm just a bit all over the shop right now. He kindly waved my apology away, but I was on edge, and the apologies kept coming. I don't know what's wrong with me. Whether I tried to do, I don't know why I can't get the lines like straight. I know them from a. So he smiled, and he said, "Dear boy, do you have any idea how much they pay me per day? At this rate, if you keep fucking it up, I'll have a new Ferrari by next week." He was absolutely deadpan. Said it like, "Dear boy, do you have any idea how much they pay me per week? At this rate, if you keep fucking it up, I'll have a new Ferrari by next week." No hint of a joke. You keep doing what you're doing, son. Did he say that to calm my nerves? I don't know. But I do know that I instantly felt the pressure lift. We went back onto the set, and from that moment, everything went swimmingly. Oh, that's fun. That's fun. All right, guys, there it is. Beyond the Wand, Tom Felton. Thanks for listening. Also, thank you so much. Oh, my days. When you got to $600, that's incredible. No idea how many people that's going to help tomorrow. So, mate, that's, I'm over the moon about that. Thank you so much. That's made my Christmas already. We're nearly at 600. Come on, guys. Thank you. Love you all. Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for all your support. Thank you. Yes, we're going into Christmas now too. Yeah, 22. I want to thank you and you. Yes, and you and you and you and you. Yeah. Santa baby. Thank you very much, guys. Happy Christmas, and I'll see you in the new year. Peace.